You didn't arrive here by chance. Something inside you slowed down at the exact moment these words appeared, as if a quieter part of you recognized their timing before your mind could question it. When a message feels this precise, it's often because you are ready to hear something you've been postponing. Lately, life may have felt strangely suspended, not falling apart, not fully clear either. You move through your days doing what needs to be done, yet there's a sense that something is unfinished inside you. This feeling is not confusion. It is space being made for a new awareness to enter. There are times when guidance does not arrive as answers, but as resonance. A subtle inner nod that says, "This is for me." You might not know what you're looking for, only that continuing as before feels heavier than it used to. You have been strong for a long time. Strong in ways few people see, managing emotions quietly, carrying responsibilities without complaint, holding yourself together even when rest felt deserved. Strength like this can become lonely, and the heart eventually asks to be met, not managed. This message meets you now because you are more open than you realize. Not because everything is resolved, but because you are willing to listen without rushing ahead, willing to pause without demanding immediate clarity, willing to receive instead of always pushing forward. Notice what happens when you stop trying to interpret this moment, when you let it simply be what it is. A meeting point between where you've been and where you're ready to go next. You don't need to understand everything for something to shift. Timing is rarely about coincidence. It's about readiness. And readiness doesn't mean certainty. It means you've softened enough to let reassurance reach you without resistance. Enough to feel seen instead of overlooked. Stay here for a moment longer. Let these words settle without pressure. You are not late. You are not behind. You have not missed what is meant for you. This message didn't come to push you, it came to meet you exactly where you are. I want to begin by speaking to the moment you are in right now, because this moment matters more than it may appear. There are times in life when nothing seems urgent on the surface, yet something inside you feels quietly attentive. You may not feel excited or distressed. You may simply feel paused. This pause is not empty. It is meaningful. It is often the space where a deeper awareness begins to form. Many people become uncomfortable with this feeling of pause. They believe that if nothing is moving quickly, something must be wrong. They look for direction, answers, or signs that they should be doing more. Yet life has its own rhythm, and there are moments when movement slows, not because you are stuck, but because something new is being prepared within you. I want you to understand that readiness does not always feel confident. Often, readiness feels like uncertainty mixed with openness. You may not know what you are ready for. You may only know that continuing exactly as before feels heavier than it once did. This heaviness is not a problem. It is a signal that you are no longer meant to move unconsciously. There are times when the mind wants clarity, but the heart wants acknowledgement. The heart recognizes timing through feeling rather than logic. It senses when something has ripened enough to be touched gently. This recognition may show up as a quiet resonance when you encounter certain words, ideas, or moments of stillness. You did not arrive at this moment by accident. Life often arranges meetings not through coincidence, but through readiness. Readiness does not mean that you have resolved everything. It means that you have softened enough to listen. Softening is an act of courage. It requires you to stop pushing and allow yourself to be where you are. I want to speak about the feeling of life being suspended, because many people experience this without understanding it. You may feel as though you are between chapters, not moving backward, not yet moving forward. This space can feel uncomfortable because it lacks definition. Yet this undefined space is often where the most important inner shifts occur. When life slows, it gives you a chance to notice yourself. During periods of constant activity, it is easy to move without reflection. When things quiet down, your inner world becomes more audible. Thoughts, feelings, and long-held tensions may come into awareness. This is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that you are finally able to hear yourself. I want you to notice how your body feels when you allow this moment to be what it is. Does something soften when you stop trying to interpret it? Does the breath deepen even slightly when you release the need to understand? These small changes are signs that your system recognizes safety in not knowing. Many people rush to label this moment as confusion, yet confusion often comes from pressure to decide. When you remove that pressure, what remains is openness. Openness does not demand answers. It allows space. Space is where new awareness enters. There is a difference between being lost and being in transition. Being lost feels frantic. Being in transition feels quiet, even if it is uncomfortable. Transition does not ask you to act immediately. It asks you to notice. Notice what no longer feels aligned. Notice what feels heavier than it used to. Notice what you have been carrying without question. I want to reassure you that feeling unfinished does not mean you have failed. It means something is still unfolding. Life does not rush its processes, and neither should you. Growth often happens beneath the surface long before it becomes visible. The heart understands this timing instinctively. The mind often resists it. The mind prefers certainty and direction. The heart prefers honesty and presence. When you are willing to sit with what is unfinished without demanding resolution, you honor the heart's wisdom. I want you to think about how often you have pushed yourself to move on before you were ready. How often you have told yourself that you should be past something by now. These messages may have sounded motivating, yet they often created tension rather than relief. Tension tells the body that it is being hurried. Healing and clarity do not arise in a hurried environment. This moment you are in is not asking you to decide anything. It is asking you to recognize where you are. Recognition does not require judgment. It simply says, "This is where I am right now." That statement alone can be deeply calming. Life often creates these moments of recognition when you have been strong for a long time. Strength, especially quiet strength, can carry you far, but strength without rest eventually asks to be met with gentleness. The pause you feel now may be life's way of offering that gentleness. I want you to trust that you are not behind. Comparing yourself to imagined timelines creates unnecessary strain. Life does not measure growth the way the mind does. Growth is not always visible. Sometimes it looks like waiting. Sometimes it looks like questioning. Sometimes it looks like allowing yourself to stop pushing. There is a quiet intelligence at work in these pauses. This intelligence knows when you are ready to receive something new, even if you do not yet know what that is. Readiness is often felt as a subtle willingness to listen rather than a desire to act. You may notice that when you stop asking, "What should I do next?" and begin asking, "What am I noticing now?" the inner atmosphere changes. Attention moves from the future to the present. The present moment is where guidance can be felt. I want to speak gently about trust here. Trust does not mean believing that everything is clear. Trust means allowing uncertainty without self-criticism. It means letting this moment exist without trying to improve it. This kind of trust creates inner safety. When the body feels safe, the nervous system relaxes. When the nervous system relaxes, perception widens. You begin to see and feel things that were previously drowned out by urgency. This is how awareness grows. You may find that certain words, ideas, or reflections resonate more deeply now than they would have before. This is not coincidence. It is alignment. Alignment does not shout. It whispers. It feels like a quiet recognition rather than excitement. I want you to allow yourself to stay with this recognition without trying to use it. There is nothing you need to extract from this moment. Simply being here is enough. Presence itself is transformative. This moment is not a test. It is an invitation. an invitation to stop managing yourself so tightly, an invitation to listen inwardly, an invitation to acknowledge that something in you is ready to be met with kindness. As we continue together, remember this: pauses are not interruptions in your life. They are part of its rhythm. They appear when something important is ready to surface, gently. You are not late to this moment. You did not miss it. You are here because you are ready to be here. And readiness, even when it feels uncertain, is always enough to begin. This is where awareness starts, not with answers, but with willingness. And you are already doing that simply by being present now. I want to speak with you now about strength, the kind you have been living with for a long time, often without noticing how much it has asked of you. This is not the loud, visible strength that others praise easily. This is the quiet strength that keeps going, the strength that adapts, the strength that says, I'll handle it even when something inside longs to be held instead. Many people learn this kind of strength early in life. They learn that being capable keeps things stable, that being composed prevents conflict, that staying calm protects others. Over time, this strength becomes an identity. You may not even think of it as strength anymore. It simply feels like who you are. Yet strength like this has weight. It carries responsibility without relief. It holds emotions in place so life can continue smoothly. It learns to delay rest, postpone feeling, and move forward even when the heart is tired. This is admirable, but it is also demanding. I want you to notice how often you have been strong without being witnessed. How many times you have managed quietly without acknowledgement or reassurance. How often you have told yourself, it's fine, when what you meant was, I'm tired of holding this alone. When strength is not met with compassion, it can become isolating. Others may come to rely on you. You may become the steady one, the dependable one. And while this may feel meaningful, it can also create loneliness. Not because you lack people, but because few people see how much you carry. The heart can carry a great deal. It is resilient and generous. But even the strongest heart eventually asks for recognition. Not praise, not solutions. Simply recognition. Recognition says, I see what you've been doing. And that seeing brings relief. I want you to understand that exhaustion does not always feel dramatic. It often feels subtle, a heaviness in the chest, a quiet sigh at the end of the day, a sense of emotional flatness where there once was enthusiasm. These are signs that strength has been overextended. Many people respond to this fatigue by trying to be stronger. They double down. They reassure themselves that others have it worse. They push rest further away. This response comes from habit, not from wisdom. Wisdom knows when it is time to soften. Softening does not mean giving up strength. It means allowing strength to change form. Strength that never rests becomes rigidity. Strength that rests becomes wisdom. Wisdom knows when to pause. I want you to notice how often you manage your feelings instead of meeting them. Managing sounds responsible, but it often means suppressing what wants to be expressed. The heart notices this suppression. Over time, it becomes quieter, not because it has nothing to say, but because it has learned that speaking will not change anything. This is where loneliness often enters. Not the loneliness of being alone, but the loneliness of being unseen by yourself. When you do not allow yourself to acknowledge your own tiredness, you become both the carrier and the one who is carried, and that is too much for one person. Life does not ask you to be strong all the time. Life asks you to be honest. Honesty may sound like admitting this has been hard, without judgment, or I've been doing my best and I'm tired. These statements are not weakness. They are clarity. The body responds immediately to this kind of honesty. Shoulders drop slightly, breath deepens. There is a small release, as if something inside has been waiting to be named. Naming is powerful when it is gentle. I want to remind you that strength developed to protect you. It served a purpose. It allowed you to move through challenges, transitions, and responsibilities. There is no need to criticize it. But protection that never stands down eventually becomes a burden. The heart begins to ask for a different kind of strength, the strength to receive, receiving care, receiving rest, receiving reassurance. This kind of strength may feel unfamiliar because it requires vulnerability. Yet vulnerability is not exposure. It is openness. You may notice resistance when you consider letting yourself be met rather than managing yourself. Thoughts may arise saying, I should be able to handle this, or others need me. These thoughts come from loyalty, not from truth. Loyalty that excludes yourself eventually becomes self-abandonment. I want you to include yourself in your own care. Include yourself in your compassion. When you do, strength no longer needs to isolate you. It becomes shared. Shared strength feels lighter. You have been strong in ways that were necessary. Now, life is inviting you to be honest in ways that are healing. Honesty does not take strength away. It gives it a place to rest. Notice how it feels to read these words. If something inside you softens, that is recognition. Recognition is what the heart has been waiting for. You do not need to change anything yet. Simply allowing yourself to be seen even by these words is enough to begin easing the weight. As we continue, remember this gently. Strength does not disappear when it is met with kindness. It transforms. And transformed strength no longer needs to carry everything alone. I want to speak with you now about allowing yourself to be reached, because this is often the quiet turning point people do not recognize until they are already standing inside it. Being reached does not mean being fixed, guided, or directed. It means allowing something kind to touch you without immediately deciding what to do with it. Many people are accustomed to seeking answers, seeking improvement, seeking reassurance through effort. Seeking keeps you moving forward, but it can also keep you slightly braced. When you are always seeking, you are rarely receiving. Receiving requires a different posture inside. To be reached, you must soften just enough to stop leaning forward. This softening does not feel dramatic. It may feel like a small pause, a moment where you stop scanning for what comes next, a moment where you allow yourself to listen without needing to respond. I want you to notice how rare this posture is. Most of us were taught to stay alert, to stay prepared, to stay ahead of things. Openness without urgency can feel unfamiliar, even unsafe at first. Yet this is precisely the state where guidance can be felt. Guidance does not arrive through force. It arrives through resonance. Resonance is not something you think your way into. It is something you feel as a quiet recognition, a gentle yes inside that does not need explanation. You may notice that certain words, ideas, or moments seem to land differently now than they would have before. This does not mean they are new. It means you are more available. Availability is readiness in its truest form. I want to speak gently about resistance, because resistance often appears when receiving is close. Resistance may sound like doubt, distraction, or the urge to move on quickly. This resistance is not a failure. It is a habit formed to protect you from disappointment or vulnerability. At some point, being open may have felt unsafe. You may have learned that expecting support led to letdown. So you learned to rely on yourself instead. This self-reliance became strength. Now, that same strength may hesitate to receive. I want you to honor this hesitation without letting it lead. You do not need to force yourself to be open. Openness grows naturally when it feels safe. Safety comes from patience and kindness, not pressure. Being reached often feels subtle. It may feel like relief before it feels like clarity, like being exhaled rather than inspired, like something inside you saying, I don't have to hold this moment together. You may notice that when you allow yourself to be reached, your body responds first. Breath changes, muscles soften, the chest loosens slightly. These changes happen before the mind understands anything. The body recognizes safety before the mind names it. I want you to trust these bodily signals. They are more reliable than analysis in moments like this. When the body softens, something important is happening. Something is landing. Being reached also means allowing yourself to be affected. Not everything needs to be filtered or evaluated. You do not need to decide whether something is true, useful, or permanent. You only need to notice how it feels. This is especially important for those who are thoughtful and introspective. The mind wants to understand before it allows impact. Yet understanding often comes after impact, not before it. Feeling opens the door, meaning follows. I want you to allow this moment to be incomplete. You do not need to extract a lesson or make a plan. Let the experience settle without commentary. The nervous system integrates experiences best when they are not immediately explained. You may notice that when you stop interpreting, there is a sense of quiet presence. This presence does not ask for action. It simply stays. Staying is something many people have not practiced with themselves. When you allow yourself to be reached, you stop managing the moment. You stop trying to shape it into something useful. You let it meet you as you are. This meeting creates connection. Connection does not require words. It requires openness. Even a small openness is enough. You do not need to open fully. You only need to stop closing. I want to speak about self-love here, because self-love is not always about affirmation or encouragement. Sometimes self-love is about allowing yourself to receive support without earning it, receiving without justification. Many people feel more comfortable giving than receiving. Giving keeps you in control. Receiving asks you to trust. Trust can feel vulnerable. Yet trust is the soil in which peace grows. You may notice that when you allow yourself to be reached, time feels different. The urgency fades slightly. The moment feels fuller. This is because you are no longer rushing ahead of yourself. I want you to stay with this fullness without trying to hold on to it. Holding creates tension. Letting allows flow. Flow does not need to be maintained. It returns naturally when you stop resisting it. This is a gentle moment of meeting, not between you and an idea, but between you and yourself. A part of you that has been waiting quietly for permission to be acknowledged. You did not need to search for this moment. It came because you were ready enough to pause, ready enough to listen, ready enough to soften. As we continue, remember this: you do not need to reach for what is meant for you. What is meant for you knows how to reach you when you are available. And availability does not require effort. It only requires willingness to be here. I want to speak with you now about the need to understand everything, because this need often appears just when something meaningful is trying to settle within you. The mind believes that understanding creates safety. It wants explanations, reasons, and clarity before it allows peace. Yet peace does not wait for understanding. Peace arrives when pressure eases. Many people have learned to trust only what they can explain. They feel uneasy in moments that cannot be named or organized. When something feels important but unclear, the mind rushes in, asking questions, seeking definitions, trying to decide what it means and what should be done next. This urgency can interrupt what is gently unfolding. I want you to notice how quickly you may try to interpret this moment. You may wonder why these words resonate, what they are pointing toward, or what you are supposed to take from them. These questions are natural. They come from intelligence and curiosity. Yet at times, they can pull you out of the experience itself. The heart does not ask for explanation in the same way the mind does. The heart recognizes truth through feeling. When something touches you, the heart softens before it understands. This softening is the signal that something real is happening. Understanding often comes later, quietly after the heart has been met. There are moments in life when clarity follows release, not effort. When you stop insisting on knowing, you create space for knowing to arrive naturally. This can feel unsettling at first, especially if you are accustomed to relying on your mind to lead every step. I want you to trust that not everything meaningful can be understood immediately. Some experiences are meant to be felt, not solved. When you allow yourself to stay with what you feel without naming it, you honor the deeper intelligence moving within you. The mind often fears that if it does not understand, it will lose control. Control has been a form of safety for many people. It has helped them navigate uncertainty and protect themselves from disappointment. Yet control also creates tension. Tension narrows perception. Narrow perception limits awareness. When you release the need to understand, even briefly, something remarkable happens. The body relaxes, the breath deepens, the inner atmosphere becomes quieter. In this quiet, insight has room to grow. Insight does not push its way in. It emerges when conditions are gentle. I want you to consider how often you have tried to figure yourself out instead of feeling yourself. How often you have analyzed emotions rather than allowing them to move. Analysis can be useful, but it is not always kind. Feeling is kind when it is allowed, without judgment. The heart opens when it is no longer interrogated. When you stop asking, "Why do I feel this way?" and begin saying, "This is how I feel right now," the tone changes. Acceptance replaces questioning. Acceptance creates safety. Safety is what allows understanding to deepen later. When you feel safe, your perspective widens. You see connections you could not see when you were tense. Meaning reveals itself in its own time, often when you are no longer searching for it. I want you to know that you are not doing anything wrong by not understanding everything at once. You are not missing something essential. You are allowing something essential to settle. Settling takes time. Rushing disrupts it. There is a quiet wisdom in letting moments remain undefined. Undefined moments are spacious. They allow growth in multiple directions. Defined moments often close too